Today I'm joined by Antonela Dunca, Head of Strategy for Chery Group France. Antonela works at the intersection of mobility, money and multicultural leadership. We explore turning frustration into fuel, navigating identity across cultures and why support systems are strategic. We also discuss where automotive is headed and the opportunities that it creates for women. Let's dive in. Hi Antonella, welcome to Moments with Molly. Thank you so much for joining us today.
Thank you, Molly, for having me. It's a pleasure.
It's so great having you on this episode because you've obviously had such an interesting career, being born in Romania and working in France for the past few years, and now working for a Chinese company.
Indeed. It's one
Yeah.
of a right.
So I think if we start right at the beginning, and if you can just give me an insight into whether the automotive industry was where you initially saw yourself starting out.
Well, I was raised and well born and raised in a family in which driving a car was a very important thing, right? Men especially are born with not a birth certificate, but a driving license. So I was always been excited around this asset, right? This holding of a house. And my brother was actually tuning his first car, and I was so much around it, and so on and so forth. My dad was repairing the car on the kitchen table, and so on and so forth. So I was very much into it. But my studies was bringing me more to the finance area. And when I had the opportunity in 2007 to join Arval in the French market as a risk owner, a risk analyst, I was like, well, that's a blessing. Let's scope the both the industry. What is my training area with the finance and the automotive sector? And that's how the story started.
Yeah. So obviously, automotive industry is typically male dominated. How have you found that throughout your career and navigating it?
Well, it was not an easy one because from the beginning, my lucky part, let's put it, I started in the banking area where banking and automotive was still a main area, but less than what you can see in the pure automotive sector. You actually have to prove yourself more than a man. First, it's that's not so different on all sectors, but in this one, especially more because a girl or a woman that likes automotive is not so often. We leave usually this kind of sector to the man, even in a household as a wife, we said, oh, the husband will take care of the car, but not so much lately. So it was not really my case, and I was really always interested in vehicles and always looked cars on the street with a different eye. That probably the majority of the women, but you need to prove yourself more than the rest. Proven not only by the technical skills but also by the market knowledge,
Hmm.
and that's what was bringing a bit more complexity to the task that in the rest of the cases.
And in terms of proving yourself more, when would you say was the first time you kind of realized that in terms of you have to create that space for yourself rather than just being in the same position that everyone else can be in?
I think that the moment that hit me the most is one of the general manager of one of the markets that I was working for that addressed to me is like, listen, young lady, you're not going to tell me how the market is working.
Hmm.
And that's where that hit me and actually said, yeah, I actually need to work more to prove that my knowledge of and understanding of the market has a difficult way to get in. That was a pleasure a couple of years after when actually we were sitting in a business review and the business product that I was actually pushing into the market was 50% of the production, and I was literally feeling like turning back to that same general manager and say, sir,
Yeah.
can you see what we've achieved in the last
Yeah.
couple of years?
So that was definitely a highlight for you.
Indeed it was. Indeed
And
it
would you
was.
say that was more so driven by frustration at the fact that you kind of had to push that a little bit harder, or by ambition to prove him wrong?
I do not believe, well, frustration is naturally coming, but I think that you need to tweak that feeling into a positive and a benefit one for yourself.
Yeah.
If you leave yourself into frustration, that will eat you more than actually give you the energy that you need. Frustration needs to feed ambition. So they have to come together. You're not going to get the ambition just from a dream. You're going to usually get the ambition, and it's going to be stronger if you fit it with the frustration of what you haven't achieved to get, of what you looking to get and you can't. And that's the way that worked for me. Indeed, the first feeling is always frustration, but that feed me to actually demonstrate that I can do what is expected and what my vision is, and that was the right one to go and to move forward. And that's really important. But I think you need to dare in that part, and this is probably the part in which, as women, we need to make the most of the effort. We need to dare. We are usually far more let's say less risk orientated. We'll take less risk than the men's. We actually throw ourselves less head in front, and we think more to things rather than going into it. But sometimes you need to dare and just move move forward, push things, and you're gonna get to the results.
Can you think of an exact time where you've had to kind of break that barrier yourself and where you may have previously been holding yourself, you had to just push through and that was your breakthrough moment?
Ah, tricky question. Exact moment in time. No, been different opportunity when I saw myself pushing in through it. Um, the reaction of saying a no, right? And I see a couple of situation in which different project went down and would shut down, and your first reaction is gonna be frustration going up there, right? Your tears bursting in your eyes, and then I say, hang on a second, I never gave up without a fight. Go back to fight. Sometimes fights are good and you get the results that you want. Sometimes you knock another wall.
Mm-hmm.
But the learning of dealing with that frustration and that feeling and the achievement that you get afterwards, that's the part that you need more to remember. This is what I remembered.
So, what would you say to people who are maybe not quite at that breakthrough point and they're kind of having those feelings of self doubt, maybe also a sense of belonging? Like, is this the right place for me, specifically for females in this sort of industry? What would kind of your advice be to them?
I've this it's really funny because I had a discussion with my daughter that she's 17 and she's trying to search for her career path into it. And I said to her, you never have to close doors to yourself. Never stop believing in things, even if at the moment in time that you do that, there is absolutely nothing that will make them true, right?
Mm-hmm.
You need to keep believing into it. And I gave her the example that when I was a student back in Romania in 2000, I was saying to my mom and to my colleagues and my friends, like, I want to do a master degree outside. There was absolutely no chance back at that time, at that moment in time, that that could actually come true. 4 years after actually came through, the opportunity of Erasmus diploma came into it, and so on and so forth. And same things like I would like to live into a house, right? Buying a house in France for a certain moment in time in 2010 was like absolutely no way for me. And you need to dream about that. You need to dream about those things, because I truly believe, and I don't want to be seem exotic, but the power of your subconscious, the power of, I say, like, this universe is making the sometimes those planets are aligning, and that's exactly the same into the career path. You need to keep yourself, yeah, this is what I want to be. I want to be a manager of a business unit. I want to be a leader position into my company. I want to be this, I want to be that. And you need to keep believing into it. Then start building your path. Start building your path, looking forward and watch where you're walking. That's really important. You can't hit the target that you want if you just look down. You need to have the both sides into it. You need to look your short term and your future and your long term career, and you need to move the step after step to go in that direction. Keep the path that you need to it, and follow your target that you have into it. But never, absolutely never, stop believing. And nobody around you, if you have people around you that are telling you that you should not, just get rid of them.
Yeah, that's so true because I feel like you can be your own worst enemy in so many situations, and you're the one that holds the power of whether you're going to close the door or not.
Absolutely. Absolutely. And usually the biggest fight that we have is with ourselves.
Mm-hmm.
To go through the stress of a new start, to get to the stress of a new job is the case for me today. I'm starting a new job, I'm starting a new adventure. It's not been the first one, it's my fourth or fifth one. It still feels like the same time. You still doubt yourself, you're still asking yourself, you're gonna be at the level of the expectation of your new company, if you're gonna be able to achieve. You are your first enemy into working into that kind of management of stress. How you're going to be into it, you're going to be able to take those responsibilities, you're going to be able to raise those expectations or not. And that's extremely important for you to manage yourself, know yourself, and always push yourself beyond the limit, because you're
Yeah.
always being able to do more. We are always underestimating our capacities.
Mm-hmm. And you mentioned as well surrounding yourself by the right people. How important have having the right support system and team around you been in your journey?
It's always about foundations, right? You always need to have somebody that is leaning your back. It's it's having your back. For me, I always had a special person in my life that was that's always had my back from a career perspective. That was my husband. He always been behind me, always been behind me, supporting me on my change of my career, and that's really important. Then obviously you need to have your besties.
Mm-hmm.
Like a woman, we know that there is nobody a better ally as women than ourselves, right?
Yeah.
And your bestie, you always have to keep it next to it. And I had the chance to be surrounded in my career for very generous persons, and luckily men that gave me very good advice and gave me a way of seeing that helped me up. Because one of the things that you always have is that you had a tendency to literally push always into it, be the head in the work, and literally forgetting sometimes to take a step back
Mm-hmm.
and look to the full picture. And I really had the chance to have some of these persons that were really good on that part, that helped me to slow down. Just think like Bruno and Jean-Charles was really good, and huge meetings in my career path. And I think that everybody needs that. And there is always that special person in your career that is pushing you to that step on the way of growing up, that will open the door to the rest. And
Mm-hmm.
if you had the chance and the opportunity, as I had, to have somebody that is actually, as he said back in the time, I place you in the universe now, up to you to find your way.
Yeah.
That's key. That's key, and that's absolutely important to surround yourself with that people. So it's one of those person once told me, and I haven't took that seriously back in the time, and I realized later how important it is, have the sense of observation of the people around you.
Mm-hmm.
And that helped me a lot. Helped me
Yeah.
a lot, especially in the multicultural environment.
Yeah. So moving on to the multicultural environment, you've previously said that the cultural side of work is often underestimated, especially in globalization. Can you tell me a little bit more about what this means?
In the last couple of years, I had the opportunity to work with different cultures. Actually, first from the beginning of my career, I worked, even I was Romanian, living and working in France. I work for different, for the international level. So from Brazil to India, from in all markets in the European area, and Africa also. And the level of evaluation of the importance of the culture aspect is changing extremely high. In all culture, in all companies that I had the opportunity to work into it, you have two behaviors: the owner and the owned.
Mm-hmm.
And the expectation that the owner culture will be imposed on the own, right? From the culture of the mother company, to the subsidy that they have, to the culture of the company that are both into merge, and so on and so forth. Creating a unified international global company culture is extremely complicated. In the latest years, I had the opportunity to work for Asian companies coming over to conquest Europe, which is a very bold goal, but
Mm-hmm.
extremely very, very, very important the last couple of years. And their understanding of the market and the French culture, of the European culture, is extremely limited. And more they are going into it, more they are discovering, more they are learning. And they could and they should avoid wasting this time. And that's extremely important today. And
Mm-hmm.
The way that you say a yes into a French in UK, in German, in India, in America, it doesn't mean the same thing. And that's a basic two words,
Hmm.
three words, three letters words that is extremely important to continue using it and understanding it correctly.
Hmm. So communication is key.
Absolutely.
Yeah.
Absolutely.
How would you say that you've had to adapt your leadership style to kind of combat these different changes in culture?
Uh, if the first combat in the leadership behavior is just try to keep the empathy in.
Yeah.
And that's against the standards today, right? There has been always been the fact that empathy was a sign of weakness, especially for women's. Empathy was always mixed up with hormones move and so on and so forth. You know, she's becoming emotional. But no, you are completely entitled to show empathy and emotion. It's extremely important to have that soft skills including emotions, right? I'm completely against that notions that been in the industry for a very long time, in which managers should show example, managers should be close into it, being able to handle his emotions, not showing them, and so on and so forth. No, you're a human being as a manager, you're a human being, and you need to show that kind of emotion as a human. You're not a robot. You're expected to understand and feel the pain that your collaborator are feeling the frustration, and so on and so forth. You need to deal better with it. That's a different thing. But hiding them and keeping them in is not as an approach. And that was extremely clear for me. And then what was nice and what I've enjoyed the most is to learn more about the way that you use this culture part in the negotiation part, in the way
Okay.
that you discuss with when you negotiate contracts, relation, partnerships, and so on and so forth, from a market to another, for a culture to another. That is extremely exciting.
Hmm.
And it's a whole world to continue discovering, because there is no way that you learn it once. More you're going into it, more that you're going to discover.
Hmm. Okay. So, going into this new role at the moment, how would you say you can cultivate multicultural complexity as a strength rather than a weakness or a barrier?
Um, the fact that a multicultural is giving you by default the need of a flexibility and the
Hmm.
capacity to adapt is definitely a strength. The fact that you are capable to adapt your speech, your way of working, the way of presenting things, the way of integrating a company is always a strength. Working for international, multicultural, wide goal globally extended companies will also always be a challenge. Don't we never need we should not underestimate this. You always need to take this as a proper, because we have the habit to kind of get in our comfort zone. This is the human behavior, right? We're always going to get in our comfort zone, and as soon as the other do not understand the way they are doing, you're always going to be like, damn it, it's normal, it's absolutely obvious that this is the way that you need to do.
Yeah.
No, it is not. And one of the things that I'm always trying to do is try to put myself in the shoes of the other and try to see by their window what they see when they see us.
Hmm.
And you need to force yourself to do that before you start doing, well, they are going, this is what they do is not normal, this is what they do is not good, is not right. The right definition is the definition of your own standards, not the definition of the other standards and the other culture standards. And that's where you need to align the standards. The standards will never change from one to another. A French culture will not change. A French employee that is working for a multi-international company will not change his standards because he's working for that one. But he will align them, right? He will align the approach into saying, they are expecting this, I'm able to give this, or I'm able to give this, how I'm aligning, right? And those alignment will have to happen on both sides. Nobody will change completely to become the other culture, and that's where the strength and the challenge for a company is sitting.
Yeah, it's like when you were emphasizing empathy before, it's so important in situations like this so that you can put yourself in others' positions and also be able to identify where strengths and weaknesses lie in both sides.
Absolutely. And that's not easy to do because, again, it's coming to the same thing that I've intimated in the past: observation. Observe what is the other culture values, standards, understand what they are doing and how they are doing, so you can understand the reaction that they're going to have on the way that you do things in your own culture. And that will be a super strength that a link that you're going to do to bound company that have multi-international relations and activities.
Have you come into contact with much resistance before?
Absolutely. And this you can see it because that's resistance will be always an answer of the frustration, right? When you're gonna get frustration, you're gonna get yourself freezed and you're not gonna want to move. So you put yourself into it and say, I will not do it this way, I will do it my way, and so on and so forth. And that you have it, and I saw so many examples on the way that resistance actually get to positive results in the end, but wasted so many resources and so much energy that was a pity, despite of the fact that gave good results. And the part that some of the culture have less of a possibility to do, of less of in standards to do, is learning lessons. And that's something that learning lessons are going to help you to kind of stand back, look to the situation, and learn not to do the same thing again, because doing a mistake or not understanding a situation is normal. If you do not understand it, you haven't had the time to observe it and learn it. But being in the same situation and repeat the same behavior, that's on you. So you need to absorb that, and you need to make sure that you understood the situation and you got the learning lesson, lesson learns in there, and you move forward as a better person and a better professional.
Yeah, absolutely. And if we're going to mix it up a little bit now and go into the journey of women as a whole, I know that you've previously said that it's so nice to see how far women have come in such a short period of time. Where do you see that road going? Would you say that we're heading in the right direction, or are there still quite a few barriers that we've got to overcome?
I think that we are definitely going to the right direction, but we don't gonna have the same speed. When we actually think that what is the speed of change that happened in the 60s and 70s, when the woman was not even allowed to have his bank account or his credit card, versus now that we are actually finding for equity of salary in the companies and so on and so forth, the speed of evolution and progress that we're going to do is less of a sharp death what was in the past. Nevertheless, there is still a lot of work to do.
Mhm.
Um, um, I will. I know that it's not a purpose at all to have political positions in there, but when I'm seeing that countries like US having position against abortion, is like we have probably some backward also, right, into
Yeah,
it, in which the
completely.
freedom of the woman, the freedom of deciding of your own body is now put on questions. So we probably have a backward situation. And then there is still a lot of work to do from a professional things that women now have a lot of opportunity, but let's not forget that we still have countries in the world that women are still unable to make their own choices. And that's something that as community, as association, as countries and politics, we need all to work together and fight against those situations, so women on worldwide are able to decide from their own body, own fate, and have the exactly same rights as any other man.
Hmm. Do you think there's anything we can specifically do in the industries that we're currently in now to kind of combat that a little bit more and work towards it?
I think that there is a part in the industry in which I was I was a bit frustrated when happened. I think it was like kind of 15 years ago, when in most of the banking companies in the French market that I was working for, there was that salary how to put it, salary revision based on equity between women and men.
Hmm.
And there was nothing more frustrating than when your manager was announcing, hey, you're going to get a raise because I obtained it between, for the cause of having equal salaries between men and women. And
Hmm.
that's not the right message to give.
Mm.
And I think that we still need to work out those parts, even if the purpose is good. The way that the packaging was coming was not back at the time at the right way. And there are, I'm seeing now more and more, and I'm seeing in the sector that is being, I'm concerned with a lot of association and regrouping of women for the automotive sector, where actually we're pushing ourselves, we're helping ourselves. If, and this was my situation, if I have the choice to choose between a lady and a man in the jobs that I was recruiting in my position and my teams back in the time, I was not in favor for women, but I'm always trying to keep equity, right? So
Yeah.
have as men, a lot of men, or sufficient men and women also having a parity into the teams.
Hmm.
Having only teams of men or only teams of women is always good. Unfortunately, there are very few and very limited number of women that are daring, if I can put it, or dreaming to join this sector, and that's still a issue and situation for the industry. Nevertheless, I think it's going to change going further, because today automotive is not so much about those fancy and complicated and complex engine, is coming more and more an area of digital, more and more of an area of technology and financing, and women are very good on that domain, and I think that that's going to change moving forward.
Yeah, fingers crossed, anyways. And I have one last question for you. So, you mentioned your daughter earlier. If she was listening to this podcast right now, what is one thing that you would want her to take away from the recording?
Oh, that's a tough one. And I think that she's gonna roll out her eyes when she's gonna see it. But I think, yes, I think that she needs to dare to dream as high as possible.
Yeah.
And that's a message that I always gave her, and she heard it so many times, and I'm gonna continue saying to her, she should not, and no one should underestimate the possibility they have. Keep dreaming, keep believe it, and keep push for it. And that's gonna come. Came for me, came for a lot of other people, and then mean that can came for you too. So yeah, that's what I wish her, and I wish to all the other women that are in the same situation.
Yeah. Oh, what a great message to end on.
Thank you.
And thank you so much for joining me today. It's been really lovely talking to you.
Thank you, Molly.